Shaun,
Good
how's it
day,
going, mate?
Richard.
How's it going?
All right, thank you. How are you?
Good. So you're all good to go?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
There's a bit of I was having a mild panic this side. Just trying to get through, but yeah, all good.
Great. Awesome. All right. So a few of us on the call, which will be a nice and intimate session today, going through observability of the Power Platform ecosystem, data-driven optimization of user experience by Shaun. So
Thank you.
crack on, mate.
All right.
Go for it.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Right. So just a quick intro. The side. So I'm what you call tech area lead for Westpac New Zealand, and particularly business services tribe. So we do a lot of delivery and build work for the institutional and business banking side of Westpac New Zealand. Got a fairly sizable group of engineers, and the scale of some of what we do is quite significant. Now, a lot of using the Power Platform and how you use it is actually quite important to us, and how actually people are using elements of Power Platform Dynamics for any of our systems. And indeed, we've got quite a good system of observability. So I suppose the purpose of this sort of presentation is just to share some of what we do, which is not typical, probably not typical what you might think of with Power Platform or Dynamics, and yeah, hopefully stimulate some sort of different thinking. So I'll kick on from here. What you've seen here are a few sort of front-end pages. We'll go straight into the actual dashboards. But what you've seen here is App Insights, so an Azure App Insights dashboard, and you're typically looking at this from a sort of system performance point of view. So this is everything that's sitting in cloud. So it's not only our Dynamics environment, it'll be all the serverless little applications, all the Azure functions that will interact with Dynamics, Dataverse, any other sort of pipelines for data, and we look at this, we watch this all the time, look at our daily users. In that, what you might call observability, here's where you look at every sort of element forms in the actual system that have been built in Dynamics. Now, in App Insights, you've got something called workbooks. We've got the ability to see any application. We'll have quite a significant footprint of applications used by relationship managers, by bankers, and these are all applications. We can see at any sort of time, in a near real-time way, how frustrated users might be with any elements of the sort of Dynamics, right? So we can see which parts of the system people are getting frustrated with, and there'll be many reasons around that, and I'll go into that in depth. And then you look at a dashboard like this, and it's totally related to business. Now, I'm purposefully trying to sort of bring a whole lot of different end functions together. Here, we've got the ability to look at usage in terms of licensing. And the whole point of this is there's actually commonality, that everything underlying any of this insight is actually the same data. So the foundation of how we are looking at the system and how we are using data at the moment, and we are finding quite a lot of multi-uses for the same data, whether that's from system performance to business performance to licensing to actual, how do people find the actual system to use? So what we're doing is actually looking at the same thing but from a different angle. So all of you might be familiar with this pic, and it's actually a picture of a young woman or old woman. So I don't know if anyone can interact here, but it'd be interesting to see what you actually think you see if you haven't seen this pic, but most people have seen it. Now, anyone there? Rich?
Yeah, mate, I'm there. I saw the young girl first, but then I'm
young girl, and then you know the old lady.
The old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's an experiment comes from the 1930s, and it's by someone called Boring. It's not boring, but yeah, I just wanted to show that actually there's many ways of looking at the same thing. So when we talk about observability and sort of IT and cloud computing, you're actually talking about the ability to actually measure a system's current state based on all the data it might generate. This isn't data that you might be purposefully storing, like in the dataverse, in the various tables or entities, the fields and all of that. This is data generated by logs, metrics, any traces that you might put in the system. In these sort of environments, all these components, right, they generate records of every activity. Now, that's an important word here, actual activity. The goal of actual observability is to actually try and understand what's happening across your whole system so you can detect and resolve issues to keep sort of systems efficient and ultimately customers happy. Another concept that's quite important here, and that we're learning is that actually observations occur when we can actually see something happening, right? But in contrast, inferences are what we figure out based on experience. So interesting thing here is I found this explanation of inference from a sort of reading literacy thing. You can find it on the web, but the important thing here is about inferring events, and this goes back to that original sort of dashboard. And what we're looking at is using events that are captured all the time in Dynamics and in cloud, right? These events are captured and everyone sort of knows it. People that are experts with the system know about audit tables, logs, and I mean, you might ask what an event is. To me, simple thing to sort of explain is stuff is happening to any table or field in the dataverse. So the dataverse being the underlying amazing data technology of Power Platform or Dynamics. Any CRUD operation, so anything's happening to a page, there's page views, there's clicks, there's user flows, all of this stuff is happening. And often, all of these events are recorded somewhere if you've enabled it. It just so happens with us, we've enabled a lot of this. And we're starting to realize that actually there's a huge amount of value in these event tables that actually are being captured all the time. So there's data everywhere. We're swimming in it. And there's ways and means you can use it. So a typical event table basically looks like this. If you look in the bottom right, there's a unique identifier. You might call it a case. You've got activities, you've got start and complete times, and then you've got sort of different meta attributes, and that could be enriched, and that gives you the way to see and to cast sort of insights of what is happening with your system. So the actual cool stuff, that doesn't mean anything other than cool stuff. So I'll get to the actual cool stuff. So I'm just going to show a few frames, reframing, like that picture of the old woman and young woman that you might have seen. So I'm going to quickly dive into our actual observability of our system. And we've got interesting dashboards. And essentially what we see is we can see at any time the performance of all applications in Dynamics. We can see failures that are happening. We can see duration of calls. We can actually see unique users. So actually the last 24 hours, there's been 103 unique users on a rainy Saturday. So people are busy at all time in the bank. And that's just for the last 4 hours. We could maybe look at, for say, the last week, how many unique users. Actually, it's about 3,100 unique users. So essentially in Westpac, quite a big Dynamics using organization. There's around about 4,000 users of Dynamics across the bank. And we've got a footprint, essentially quite a large footprint of different applications that are used. But the cool thing is using this performance data, what we're starting to look at is elements in the system. So these are actually form views or page views in the system, and you can recast. I'll get into what actually this means, but I'll get back to this now, is that you can actually see for the entire sort of footprint is elements of the system, almost a naughty list, if you'd like. And we can start to look at which parts of the system are excellent, which parts are actually causing most frustration. And indeed, when you have a new customer interaction, there is a shitload of frustration. Now, that tells us what users might actually be getting frustrated with their elements of Dynamics. The cool thing is that we can often figure out why people are finding that part of the system actually quite frustrating. So we can look for that customer interaction, and the new customer interaction, that top of the list, that most frustrating user list, is this gives you the flows, the user flows for that actual element that's causing frustration. What you can see, there's quite a lot of complexity happening on that page or form. So you got a shed load of click views, and this extends right back. You can see steps previous and after, right? So we can go, say, 6 steps before, 6 steps after. And what you're seeing is insight that users indeed for that actual form. There's a huge lot of complexity, but what they're doing is they're dropping off before actually finishing using that application. Sorry about the move around. And you'll find this little red session end. Here it's starting to, there's a little bit more success and parallel. And you see the main path is actually this sort of user flow count here. So using actual data enables us, and we should be actually using this to design better systems, and we're getting there, right? And it's often, hey, realizing that this data exists and we can actually use it. So what you can do with the same data is we see it in terms of, here's the performance, here's our users, people are using the system. Here we've got the actual applications we use to bring that data together. What you can see is, using that same data that you'd be using for sort of system performance, we can actually start to look at it and reframe it in terms of end user satisfaction or user experience. So we can figure out what parts of the system are actually useful to our end users or frustrating, or they're actually tolerating it. And what you find is, going into this, I don't know people online whether they've heard of AppDex. AppDex is just a metric that's been put together that actually gives a sense of how users might be experiencing the system, and it's a function of response in terms of hitting a button. Is there the sort of time element for any change, and bringing that all together? You can assume that users might be frustrated or tolerated or satisfied. It's not ideal, but it just gives a good signpost for us to sort of start going in and really refactoring and simplifying processes for actual users that might get overcomplicated and start frustrating users. Since we know the what, we can actually figure out why users might be frustrated. So we can get that sort of data-driven cross-sectional view of any form or page in Dynamics, and start to recast in terms of how users are using it. We can look at those ideal flows, and those will actually correspond to buttons and clicks and forms in a sort of workflow in Dynamics. And there's a pathway to actually simplify that sort of user experience. And to the right, again, we're just looking at that data. Similar applications, we're using Azure Monitor and Application Insights. Cool thing is, the same data. Unfortunately, I can't go into showing you the actual dashboard itself. So there's quite a lot of tactical or strategic information that you got, and my employers wouldn't be happy sharing that with the world. But the rest is using that same information and using other elements of the actual Power Platform. So we got Azure Monitor where we get that data, we got App Insights, and then we start looking at sort of refreshing those activity tables that we are looking at with elements of the dataverse, and we start enriching that to look at reframing how business performance is sort of being carried out across the sort of dynamics sort of space that we use. The cool thing about this is you've got Power BI, and then behind the scenes, I don't know whether people might have heard of ML.net, but there's a way that you have these visualizations that take sort of elements of ML.net and can apply it to the data in a low-code way. And it's that same event data that enable us to get a sense of actual business performance, the effects of actual dynamics on improving business performance. And we can see that. We can see time taken to complete activities in Dynamics, and those activities relate to actual business function. So you can look and recast how people are using Dynamics by productivity, and then time spent in Dynamics is actually time saved in reality. And there's certain multipliers that show that. So just using that same what might be system event data, enriching it with actual data that actually exists, is a powerful way for us to just measure that sort of, whether it's user experience or actual business performance. Using that same data, I mean, we can reframe that business performance again. And like I was saying, hours spent in the system is hours saved. And actually what we've seen is often 21% decrease in time taken to reach a decision on certain sort of credit submissions. There's also a certain element of money saved per week in terms of time give back to those departments, in terms of automation, magic from Dynamics. Finally, using that same data and a slight enrichment, we've got a way to actually see and optimize our usage across the bank in terms of licensing. Now, I mean, Microsoft necessarily with I mean, the richness of the systems and the applications we use, there's lots of different licensing tiers. However, often that can get quite complex. And certainly we can see we certainly underusing elements of the ecosystem, and our licensing certainly isn't that optimal. The cool thing here is what we've got is taking that event data, linking it to, everyone might be familiar with Microsoft Graph. If you're not, check it out. You can go to quite a cool graph interface. Not sure whether everyone's familiar with it. You can go to what's called Graph Explorer, and you can see your sort of, so my profile. This is just obviously just test data, not wanting to go into actual my own, wouldn't be a good thing for the bank, but anyway, cool thing is using that same data enriching it with graph, we've got a way to actually look at our licensing versus usage in a very fine-grained way. And we can further enrich that with Microsoft product SKU data that's available and build up a profile of our usage, right? And actually benefit ourselves and the ecosystem with this fine-grained view of usage. So it could actually be a good thing for us with the new developments in terms of pay as you go. And if we've got these insights, that we've got a way to really govern how this can really be used on a wide scale. The cool thing about this is with this data that's layered from what might be seen as a systems point of view, layering it with all this enriched stuff, enables us to get a lot of uses by just reframing, bringing that data together. So I'll just end off these last few things to let sort of have a cool discussion about some of this. The context of this is that if you think about it, there's actually data everywhere, particularly the dataverse, particularly the Dynamics and Power Platform ecosystem itself. There's data everywhere. The customer data platform itself, that dataverse is an incredibly rich sort of data system. However, going beyond that, all of us that might know is not only do you have those tables, whether it's account tables or customer tables, you've got these event tables that are associated with a lot of those major sort of insight tables. Those event tables are hugely rich in terms of information that can actually give you a way to either improve your system or actually improve the way you do business. And ultimately, that data is coming from the same source. You can get that insight by just reframing, re-looking at the data from a sort of different point of view, enrich it, and we starting to figure that out, that actually there's ways and means to really use this ecosystem in an amazing way. The point here is that there's this data to be used at all times. Just any sort of system, whether it's a phone, like your stabilizing system on your phone, just to sort of keep that image stable takes 24 million data points for 8 megapixel resolution. In Dynamics itself, the dataverse, I mean, the dataverse is effectively what you'd call a data mesh in its own right. It's incredibly sophisticated piece of technology that we really are only starting to figure out now on an enterprise scale how to use it in a data-led way or data-driven way. For instance, what we call ICE, you've got sort of 900 tables, around 40,000 fields. And that's a rich amount of sort of customer data. And then you take all the event data that's been collected around those tables, and how people are using the applications on top of that data. And just what you've seen with these 4 different use cases is huge ability just to use that data to either gain efficiencies or actually improve the system for end users. So another cool thing is, I mean, with the huge evolution in Power Platform itself with PCFs. I'm not sure whether people are familiar with PCFs, so Power Apps Component Framework, taking those certain visualizations. You might take React or D3 and start bringing these reusable visualization components to see, hey, these are the underlying tables. These are major tables in terms of richness. And then you can go to sort of activity tables and you can bundle these things and reuse it either as an element in your sort of applications to improve that, or actually give you insight. So we continually actually discovering various sort of rich sources of data and only really figuring out that she's recasting that same data in different ways, enriching it, enables us to get a huge amount of value from the system, but actually to improve the system itself from a user experience perspective. And hopefully this can fire up the community in terms of going beyond the low code aspect or the powerful richness of the ecosystem. Actually, there's data underlying the whole system that enables you to actually force multiply the richness in Dynamics itself. Yeah, I'm sort of keen to really explore with any people in the sort of presentation, any questions they might want to ask, any shared experience they might have had.
Just jump in with questions, folks. Yes, I will.
Hi, son.
I'll ask a question, Shaun, if that's okay, just to get the ball rolling. So we talk about pro devs and citizen devs and Power Platform spanning across a spectrum, right? And at Westpac there is definitely a lot of ninjas in pro dev camp. Do you see there is an uptake in citizen devs towards the business analysts, then users, an uptake of Power Platform as well? How do you see that in the Westpac sense? So like we're talking about a tier one bank here, right? Organize themselves to drive adoption like that. What's your thoughts around that?
So we've almost taken it the other way, son, as you've seen. So normally with Power Platform and Dynamics, the first thing people might experience is that low code aspect of Power Platform, and they get into the deeper elements of it. So the Dynamics 365 being native and all of that. And enterprises might then go deeper into your product set. We've gone the other way, right? So everything started with D365 CRM on-prem. And CRM itself is almost self-limiting because you're just thinking of a certain application. We had Dynamics CRM on-prem and we replaced it into cloud. However, what you're getting with Power Platform is this amazing ecosystem where it's difficult if you, and in terms of tier one bank, and it's hugely, everything's highly regulated. We're very careful about our data, use of data. I'd love to go into deeper, be able to show our audience some of our insights, especially around business performance, but I can't do that just in terms of not being able to sort of share that stuff. We've gone deep and we've gone almost dev side first. So as you've seen, we've got very deep and we're very big on Dynamics 365. We got Power Platform use, but because of our IT controls, a lot of people in the bank haven't quite got to actually using the cool elements, those low-code elements yet. The cool thing is our observability that we have, and cool things like Center of Excellence and all of that, getting that to production, enables us to automate the IT controls, enables us to give a view across the bank, and enables us to sort of automate what are often high toil processes. So we've gone very, very deep. So engineering first, we've got quite cool deployment pipelines, very serious Azure DevOps deployment pipelines, large scale, right? But where we're lacking is getting that detonation of Power Apps and other elements of Power Platform for the entire organization, and that's just firstly understanding the richness that it has to offer. So it's more than CRM. Son, as you've heard me just railing against the world, it's more than CRM. It's actually, there's so much we can do, but it's also to guarantee that control. And look, the Power Platform system itself, with elements like COE, provide a huge ability to control on enterprise scale, and give, whether it's download policies, data loss policies, all of that. It's really cool. So we're getting there, but at the same time, we just really discovering the richness of the data for us to recursively go in and improve the work we've already done. So huge amount of work done in Dynamics proper. However, what you could do, so I mean, what you can do now, you couldn't do 2 years ago when people first got into the system. Now it's a case of going back and really improving elements that can be improved, and sort of using elements of Power Platform to enable that improvement, and piggyback on the innovation that's happening in the platform itself. Use the data to help us help ourselves with this platform that's continually innovating and moving and evolving.
What's it's interesting, right? Because CRM, so to speak, has been in Westpac for a long time, and it's difficult to change that perception. It's just CRM. In fact, there is so much more than that. And it's also fascinating to see those pockets of innovation on the Power Platform as well, from different tribes. And every time I see use cases get spun up, wow, it was mind blowing. And currently, I mean, Westpac is already one of the highest customers with the highest MAUs in New Zealand, monthly active users. So it's a well adopted platform in for the size of a New Zealand organization. But I guess I remember back in the days we used to use hackathons as a means to generate ideas, to test things out, and to create backlogs as well that would determine what those sort of things would be for next quarter, next month. What's your thoughts around that? And is that difficult to organize a large organization like Westpac to really innovate, using hackathon as a vehicle to do it?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know me, love hackathons, and I suppose when you have these backlogs and we're so busy all the time, it's difficult to try and put across that hackathons actually are going to create value, right? And we've seen it. The cool thing about Microsoft's current stuff that you're driving out in your Microsoft Learn. So whether that's PL 600, so I can highly recommend people going and doing that. So there's a certain place in there where Microsoft, you talk yourself about fusion development, so that fusion teams. So crossing that citizen developer with some of our serious ninjas, right? And to me, I think there's that gap there where it's a hackathon where you join the serious engineers, and get them working with people from business, call them citizen developers, and they've got that aptitude to understand the platform itself. Because as you know, in organizations at different levels, it's easy to lock into a product and to label it CRM. There's our product. We can box it, put it over there. However, Dynamics Power Platform itself is an ecosystem that goes far beyond just one product. And I suppose it's a difficult selling proposition for you from Microsoft itself, because of your huge rate of innovation happening. The hackathon thing is a really important thing to try, and we're trying to drive into that right now. As you might know, Sun, to pick up, we've touched on it in the past, having that hackathon, but I really see the gap from what Microsoft Learn suggests, that sort of fusion element, so that business plus serious dev, and crossover with that low code to serious dev, and drive that forward. But the cool thing is we could use our data, our actual observability, to feed into what's the subject for that hack. So what we've seen there is, hold on, we've got huge dissatisfaction with certain elements of Power Platform. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get some relationship managers or people right on the front line with the devs themselves, and have a hackathon and build the thing, and actually show from that user flow point of view, hey, can we up the AppDeck score in terms of satisfaction together? There we go. There's a hackathon idea, son.
That's right.
Next year, yeah.
I guess it doesn't have to happen at org-wide across 600 people across the IT delivery in every QBR, right? It could happen in pockets of an relationship within tribes. I think that's definitely something, as long as there's an appetite for it. And I think over the past months or years, we've seen non-IT folks coming onto the Power Platform and start building that sort of stuff. And I think there's great anecdote we can share there as well. The thing is, we're looking forward to a day where the monthly active makers is as high as the monthly active users. Yeah, and I think Westpac is definitely one of those organizations can achieve that, because we've got the tools, we've got the capabilities, and I think we're working towards the process that we can organize an organization to achieve far greater than we currently have already. And the observation stuff, that's beyond belief, right? When you share that with our customer success unit folks, there's a lot of insight we can learn from what you guys did already. That's definitely world leading.
And look, the point is that for anyone that has the actual platform and is using the platform, so anyone out there that might have this platform available and is using it in your organization, it's that the start is available. It's not like you are using and really putting this huge outlay to get that data and to actually get the benefits of the that system. It's available to everyone. And my point about that picture of the woman is it's almost just how you look at it, and just the way you look at it gives you the ability to get that value out of it. So just sharing with the community that sort of data is available for everyone. And if anyone would like some pointers and stuff, I'll share my email and all of that.
On that note, is there anyone else have a question you want to ask Shaun as well? The godfather of Power Platform D365 Westpac.
I'll go, son. Hey, Shaun. So all the changes that happened in on the Azure side for the analytics and the metrics stuff, how do you keep up with what's changed and how new capabilities are coming on?
Oh, man. I talk to Sun regularly. No, so always a good source of stuff is on LinkedIn. So I'm really connected to quite a lot of Microsofties. Also regularly look at all the various sort of Microsoft Learn paths. That's an awesome entry point for a lot of the innovations that are happening. I mean, learners following your own sort of innovation with your platforms. I mean, I only recently discovered that customer data certification coming in, the CDP platform speciality coming in December. And I suppose using Learn itself to really keep up with some of the new innovations, but also keeping in touch with people in Microsoft. We've really got good people on board that we interact with, like Sun and others. But also, I suppose, sharing what we have. So we have special interest groups that we share with the rest of the Westpac community, but also with Microsoft themselves. I suppose it's a group effort to try and keep up with the new innovations that are continually happening.
So I'll just add to that, Richard. Across the bank, there is a special interest group that happens every fortnight, essentially for folks that have interest in developing Power Platform, come and present their act of digitization and share. And there are some really good spearheads in there, right? And they can learn, pick things up and run with it. And through the community within the bank itself, and ideas get shared. Just last Friday, was yesterday, the PCF controls getting built on one specific use case. And there are bounce ideas in other parts of the business as well. And on the back of that, let's create an internal Westpac PCF gallery, and which applies to them. I mean, that's a power of community, power of citizen devs to share within the bank.
Yeah, it's a really awesome. Cool thing, Sun, because you Microsofties dial in, but the community is across the bank, Richard, and everyone's sharing this stuff. So it's almost a mini bi-weekly business applications summit type thing that everyone can share and put across what they might have learned, and it's not something that is a compulsory thing to do. People are doing it because they're actually passionate and loving some of the stuff and loving learning about it. So yeah.
And we're not talking about a small group of people. We're talking about 150 of their order magnitude, right? And every bi-weekly we get pool of 60, 80, 90, and there's good participation across the board.
Yeah. Very good. Any more questions from the folks on the call? I'm sure Eliza's got a question. I'm sure she has. Test that she's still there.
Are you talking to me?
Yay! There you go. All right. Okay, guys. We're 8-minute break. Thanks, Shaun, for covering all that information. It's really good. Just shame you can't share all the secrets of the bank numbers and stuff and see things. But that's all right. We understand. Understood. But yeah, definitely application insights and all of that is really it's where a lot of those small micro changes can happen, right? So you can really improve what you're doing for your customers if you know how they're using and what they're doing and what's slowing things down or going well. So really good to see that.
The user experience is really becoming important, and the more the actual innovation happens with the platform itself, the more we have to start figuring out how to make it less frustrating for the end users. And that's becoming more and more important. So, I mean, what you couldn't do 6 months ago, you can do now, and that's just compounding. So it's almost becoming really important to have that observability of your system. Yeah.
Matt, do you have a question, or Matt is presenting? Matt's presenting.
Matt's presenting. Anyway.
All right,
right,
folks.
I'll hand over. Thanks, everyone.
And back on at 2 o'clock.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for the questions, son. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, Shaun.